It is a nice and overcast day in Seattle today, so it's a great time to bring my Dracaena sunray outside because it is one of the plants that love direct sunlight. But as I talked about it in last week's video, you need to start easy, so today is a perfect day to begin. Hi, and welcome to Botanical Woman. I'm Christine, and today I want to show you around some of the plants that love direct sunlight and also plants that love indirect light that you can also put outside. If you didn't get a chance to watch last week's video, make sure you do so that you know how to acclimate your plant accordingly so that it doesn't burn when it goes outside. So the first plant that I'm going to talk about is the Monstera deliciosa. I brought it outside last summer, put it on the balcony. It did get burned, but it also developed some beautiful, large-ass fenestrations. So as you can see, this plant's a little tatty right now because I didn't water it over the winter. But all of these leaves that you see was actually grown outside on the balcony, and it has all these really big leaves with fenestrations. Like this one has 2 rows of fenestrations. So if you want your Monstera to get really big leaves and a lot of fenestration, direct sunlight is going to be your key. Just a warning, it will get burned. So once again, gradually introduce the light. And moving on to the next plant is my favorite, Stramante Triostar. So this is my Stramante Triostar. It's taken a beating because last summer was, holy cow. It's definitely gotten a bit burned and it was very thirsty. So I had a really hard time keeping up with it. I think this summer I will put it back out there, except I will probably change the medium to make it a little bit more dense because it was drying out very quickly. And I think staying on top of watering is key so you don't get these crispy edges. But otherwise, yeah, I think this plant does excellent outside. Once again, easy transition. So the next plant I want to show you guys is Sansevieria, which is notoriously known to be a low light plant, but it is not. It actually thrives in direct sunlight, but once again, if you give it too much sunlight too soon, it will burn, which is what you're seeing all these brown tips on this one is. It got pretty toasted in April last summer, but it did spend the rest of the summer out on the balcony and it didn't die. It doesn't look great. A lot of my plants got a little beat up because of the experiment. I would say Sansevierias are a great choice for going outside. They can tolerate direct sunlight, but like I said, repeatedly, take it slow. Another plant that does really well outside is actually the string of heart, both the variegated and the normal version. The variegated string of heart actually gets really, really pink if you give it a lot of sunlight, and it's more like a succulent plant, so make sure you water it accordingly. I have not noticed it getting burned, but I'm sure it can if the light is too intense. So if you want your string of heart to grow like crazy this summer, I recommend putting it in some direct sunlight. So this is Ficus Benjamin. I have actually not put this plant outside, but I understand that it can. I'm gonna try it this summer. This is actually a variegated Benjamin, and as you can see, some of the leaves are starting to turn solid green, and that's mainly because it's not getting enough light inside. So I'm gonna try to bring it outside to see if it will increase the variegation. Those of you who have the Ficus elastica or the fiddly fig, those ficus with larger leaves, I definitely recommend you try to give it more light this summer, just because ficus actually love a lot of light. Even my 2 other smaller ficus, they love a lot of light, so give them light, give it to them. The next group of plant I really want to talk to you guys about is my succulents and my cactus. They are absolutely one of my favorite groups of plants. Because I have a west-facing balcony, it just makes it really easy for me to have them outside. And they do really love it, but that is not to say that they cannot get sunburned, because literally this has only been outside for a week, and just the intense amount of rays that we get very shortly and abruptly in Seattle has already burned some of these. I've gotten over the fact that some of these plants will burn, so you just have to, know what you're getting yourself into. And these succulents are, you know, more or less going to be suffering from the same thing because I'm not taking these in and out. But a great plant to choose if you want to, you know, have them get some direct sunlight on your west or south facing exposure. So I just showed you guys a few examples of different types of plants that love direct sunlight, and I will also at the end of the video go through a reference sheet that you can refer to, and that will have a much longer list of plants there. So hang on to the very end and I will be talking about that table that I think every plant lover should look at. The next set of plants that we're going to discuss are plants that love bright and direct light, and most of these plants are houseplants that you already own, so any northern or eastern exposure is going to be perfect for them. So all the plants that are included in this list are plants that do not like direct sunlight. So a philodendron is definitely one of those plants. Hoyas, they can tolerate it a little bit, but don't really love it. Jungle cactus that also likes bright and direct light. I'm not going to be able to go through every single one, but some of my favorites are obviously Hoyas, peperomias, begonias, philodendrons, alocasias, anthuriums, you name it. The list goes on and on. So most of those plants will do great with some soft morning sun that you'll get from eastern exposure or all day long in northern exposure. Now that we've looked at two different types of plants and you probably have a good idea of some plants that you want to move outside, I want to give you a reference that you can use and always go back to, and I find it extremely actually knowledgeable and fun to look at. Let's look at this table together. You can find the link in the description below. This is Darryl's webpage. He also is very famous on Instagram, though please check him out. He is very, very knowledgeable. He is an engineer by trade, so he has a very interesting way of caring for houseplants. Okay, I already sorted this table by the commercial light levels so that you can see which plants they recommend greenhouses to put in really strong light or in some cases direct sun. So yuccas, souffleras are not surprises to me at all. Souffleras grow all over Hong Kong as outdoors in a very tropical climate. Jade plants, your succulent plants are gonna do great in the sun, as we all know. My only surprise was actually the Norfolk Island pine, which a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest buy as a Christmas plant, and they don't do well indoors because they need a lot of light, as this table is telling you. Air plants, surprisingly, can take a lot of light. Your crotons, we know that. Pothos is a very interesting one. It is obviously a very popular houseplant, and most people know it as it tolerates very low light. It says it right here too. However, I could tell you that it actually likes a lot more light, although I don't know about 3,000. Like, you know, does it like as much light as a croton or some of these succulents? Like 5,000 foot candle seems really high up there. Even though it can take a lot of light, it takes time to get there. Remember what I said about, like, you know, being sunburned and stuff. Okay, and yes, your nerve plants also require a lot of light. But see, what's also interesting in this column over here, in the third column, which is the minimum for maintenance. Look at the drastic differences between the numbers between the commercial light column and the minimum for maintenance. For me, minimum for maintenance is survival. Like, your plant is not dying, it is able to survive under this minimum amount of light. That means it's not thriving, which is the column next to it, the first column. That's good growth. That is a plant that is, you know, doing well. I guess thriving would be more under the commercial lighting, because when you are a greenhouse and you're cranking out plants like Gabriella plants, they want their plants to be in the best condition so that they can pump out those plants and sell them to us. I think it's just really interesting having the different types of light requirements for the same plant. And I think for us houseplant keepers, I really think that you need to ask yourself, how well do you want your plants to survive? Like, do you get a puppy and say, okay, I'm just going to do the bare minimum to keep this puppy alive? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm a advocate of people giving their plants more light whenever possible. Placing your plants by a good window, even if it's a north-facing window, it's still way better than having it 3 feet from it, because light really diminishes the further away it gets from the source very, very quickly. So even though to your eyes, your plants are getting a lot of light, that is just not how plants receive light. So I urge you to get a light meter. The light meter app that I have on my phone, I linked it in the comment below. I also linked the light meter that Darryl recommended that I also purchased off the Amazon, and his book if you really want to geek out and have a good reference on hand at all times. Let's look at the other side of the spectrum and plants that like lower light. So they have African violets, your orchid plants like lower light, calatheas, these are plants that we are well known to be low light plants. But now let's look at the numbers, right? Low maintenance, it says at least 200 to 100 foot candle. I am not super keen on leaving plants at 100 foot candle. I think that's really, really low. So my minimum is usually 200. And even under my grow lights, some plants only get 200 because of how far they are from the light source. A really interesting one is Sansevieria. It says that it can maintain, not die at 100 foot candle. And then it says for good growth, it says 200 foot candle. I'm not sure I agree with that. It's probably fine under 200, but you're not going to be like seeing explosive growth. But they're slow growing plants to begin with. But look at this. They recommend, look at the range, 1,000 to 6,000 for commercial growing. Those are huge differences between what they recommend versus how they're actually growing these plants in a greenhouse environment. So that is what I really wanted to highlight for this table and in this video. In the future, I will be making other videos about what is bright and direct light, what is foot candle, and all that good stuff. In order to be a good plant parent, I really think it's important to understand how much light your plant needs. So therefore you need a light meter. And yeah, what is the optimum growth? You really need to ask yourself, do you want your plants to just survive? Is it, a piece of decoration to you? Or do you want to really respect it as a living thing and really give it the environment to thrive and grow and live its best life? I want to say that, somewhere in the middle, that's where I found it to be, most workable for me. So everybody's situation is different. I'm not hating on people who, use their house plants just as decor. I just really wish that there was more education out there about what bright and direct light means, because it's a big mystery. So you don't have to just guess. This table really gives you the information that you need. I'm sorry for that long-winded explanation or rant, but I just want to say that I just think it's really important to be educated so you can be informed and know what to do. I really hope that you found this video to be helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I would also love it if you actually told me that you discovered that you were not giving your houseplants enough light and that you moved it to a better spot because you used the light meter to inform you of where to place your plant. Alrighty then, until next time, happy growing!